Giving all honor and praises unto your Yahuwah, Dimona Rabbeinu HaMashiach Benami, to the princedom, divine princedom, the serene ministers of the kingdom, the crowned saints, to all the saints of the kingdom of Yah, to our honored guests that have traveled up from the lands. We thank you and we say shalom, shalom, Eretov. I want to say that pondering upon the theme of the Writers' Conference, the regeneration of the whole creation and the Genesis idea, it was marvelous to really realize how far the kingdom of Yah has come since the inception of the kingdom, and watching the evolutionary growth of the kingdom, to really see how far that we have come. And when you look at the definition of milestone, and you understand that a milestone is something that demarcates, that makes a definite point of reference in progression and evolution, and major significant events in history, you will see that outside of the kingdom of Yah itself being a milestone in the history of development of the world, but that within the kingdom process there have been milestones that have been achieved. And with that, just to show the contrast, I would just like to read a quote from a writer who spoke on the present world affairs that he saw over 2,000 years ago, and then look at the contrast according to the theme that we have today. For the earnest expectation of the creation waited for the manifestation of the sons of God. For the creation was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who has subjected the same in hope. Because the creation itself also shall be delivered from bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of Yah. For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now, the days of the kingdom of Yah. So we had that contrast, and then we look at the theme, the regeneration of the whole creation. We've come to another milestone in world development. And the part that myself, with the blessing being partake here with the Grady Minister YADIEL, the part of the Genesis creation that we're going to focus in is nutrition. We have reached another milestone in regenerative nutrition. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And it would take these two mighty ministries, the Ministry of Divine Agriculture and the Ministry of Divine Health, to come together to be able to express the magnitude of this milestone. So with that, I pray that we just open our hearts, open our minds and our spirits, and hear the words that are coming forth, and mark this day on your calendar as another milestone being achieved by the kingdom of Yah. Hallelujah. At this time, Minister YADIEL.
Shalom, shalom, Eretov. Shalom, Kim. We'll get right into the subject matter for this evening. The magnitude of the presentation this evening will go far beyond the 45 minutes that we've been allotted, so we will have to do an oral PowerPoint.
Most qualified.
And, the father at one of the national meetings recently, he made reference to the prophetic priesthood and the prayers. Remember?
Gang.
And he said that he believes in the prayers of the priesthood. Right?
Gang.
Because he believes that the priesthood was the entity that was established by Yah that has the power of effective prayer.
Gang.
So he calls on the priest because he believes in it, in the power of the priesthood. But we also know that institutions of the kingdom, right, that same belief exists. It's not just the belief in the prayers of the priesthood, but the belief in the power of the institutions of divine health, ministry of divine performing arts, ministry of divine agriculture. Each one of those institutions has been empowered by Yah to perform a duty in this dispensation of time, and the Father believes that they have the power to do that.
Okay.
So, by reason tonight, our presentation is relative to nutrition, but specifically to conceptualizing physical immortality as a biological process. So that we don't take the myth out of living forever, and understanding that it's a process, something that must be done whole day to whole day. Whole day to whole day as a process. But as we deliver this presentation, if you do not believe the things that are being said tonight, then you will not be able to activate even the biological process, let alone the spiritual side of it. So, let us move on. Quoting from Physical Immortality, Conquering Death, we got to have somebody can time us, get us when we get to the 20-minute mark. Page 15, it says,
We also deal extensively with plants, suggesting that you take a closer, more in-depth look at the relationship between plants and man as inferred in the Genesis creation and confirmed in science. The relationship between the soil, plants, and man is much more physically and spiritually interwoven than you would imagine. Our new understanding of that relationship is going to require a complete restructuring of our perceptions and behavior, affecting even the prayers over your meal. None of the things that are being revealed are very demanding. They just require of us to place our life support system into the proper perspective. We are not presenting some type of rigid demands upon the Adamic civilization. But because of the enormous influence of deception, we must go back.
Wait, slow down. We must go back
and take a closer look
at
the fundamental
basic
land-man relationship.
We must go back and take a closer look at the fundamental land-man relationship
and
explore, we got these words now, exploration, and explore what?
The means of effective communication.
Not just communication, but effective communication.
That is required
to cause
plants,
people,
animals,
to cause plants to what?
To yield their vital nutrition
in
order for us to achieve our goal of immortality.
Physical immortality. Let's reverse it. In order for us to achieve our goal of physical immortality, we must cause plants to yield their vital nutrition through effective communication with them, based on a closer look of the fundamental land-man relationship. Everything else is commentary. If you can understand that, we can walk out the door tonight. I can go sit down and say loud. Right. Moving right along. So what is the fundamental land-man relationship as inferred in the Genesis creation, and is it confirmed in science? Yes. Adam Adamah, Genesis 2:7. And God created man from the dust of the earth. Right? Mistranslation. Yahu Yitzir Adam Afar Mina Adamah. Yah created Adam from the minerals of the soil. Basic, fundamental. We all understand it. Is it confirmed in science? Yes. Iron, blood, calcium, bones, phosphorus, potassium, brain. You name the mineral, there's a spot in the body for it. Is that confirmed in science?
Yes.
Hallelujah. So, we all agree. Now, let's take a closer look. Because the Father said, go back and take a closer look. and we take a closer look, confirmed in science, quotation. It says here in a science book, not all elements which are found in the human body in trace quantities play a role in life. Some of these elements are thought to be simple bystander contaminants without function. Now we're talking about Adam Adamah. Adam was created from the minerals of the soil, so how can some minerals in the soil be bystander contaminants that have no function? Next point. There is evidence that one element normally considered a toxin, for example, arsenic, right, is essential in ultra-trace quantities, even in mammals, people. What do you mean by ultra-trace? We heard of trace minerals, we heard of minerals, now there's ultra-trace minerals, which means that just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit is essential for vital nutrition. But I thought arsenic was a poison. Quote. Next, it says here, some elements that are clearly used in lower organisms and plants, like arsenic, silicon, boron, nickel, vanadium, used in plants, right, are probably needed, listen to the language, probably, but, maybe, okay, by mammals, people, but in far smaller doses. So now we have ultra-trace chemicals, ultra-trace minerals. The next point, you got to ride with me, moving fast. Taking a closer look, listing of soil minerals with overlooked role in Adamic nutrition. Raise your hand if you heard of the mineral gallium. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gallium, G-A-L-L-I-U-M. Not many of us. I didn't know about it either, so don't feel ashamed. Gallium is an ultra-trace mineral found in all organs of the Adamic body, especially in the kidneys, the spleen, the liver, the brain, the thyroid, the adrenal glands. But there is no recommended daily allowance for it, and they don't know what the function is. Okay? But same for rubidium, the same for nickel, the same for vanadium, and all these minerals sound like something from an asteroid. But they're in the soil. We're going somewhere with this.
Come on.
The known mineral complexes such as calcium, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, right, have been scientifically cataloged. However, there are mineral complexes that are yet to be revealed.
Okay.
This is where we're going now, all right? According to ancient African Indic writings, the soil of Gan Eden fell under a prophetic constraint.
Right.
Genesis, first in the garden, Genesis 3 and 17, through our disobedience, it says that the earth would be cursed.
Right.
That was us in the garden, right? And then right around the corner in Genesis 4, 9 through 13, where we had the Cain-Abel scenario, right? Cain was cursed. He said that the land would no longer yield its strength unto you. So there was a double curse. One through our disobedience and one through another scenario. Now, two scenarios, but two different situations. One, but the thing is that this land was cursed and therefore would not yield its strength unto us. What was the strength that it was supposed to yield to us?
Nutrition.
So it had to be nutrition. It had to be nutrition through some combination, some type of mineral or minerals. You follow one? Stay with me now. Therefore, in the curse of Cain, that's irreversible. It's irreversible. Cain was cursed because why? Because if the land was allowed to yield its strength unto us, remember we were created in what? Perfection, wholeness. The ability to perpetually regenerate the Adamic body equals physical immortality. Right?
Right.
With the land being cursed and not allowed to yield its strength, we can't do that because we can't regenerate because that vital nutrition is held back. In the case of Cain, which symbolizes the anti-Yah mind, which is evil, right? Evil cannot have the benefit of living forever. Evil can't live forever on the planet. Be nothing left, as we see in the end days. So there had to be a finite time put on him. The land had to be shut down. Consequently, Cain went on a rampage. Right?
Right.
He sought to what? Extract the minerals. Right? From the soil. How? Chemical fertilizers. Right? He tried to force it to yield. Consequently, he began to destroy the creation. But the other curse, right, was a disobedience. It had nothing to do with Cain. It had to do with our disobedience to the laws and instructions. Which meant that there's a redemptive scenario in there. That if we turned away and turned back to obedience to the law, that the land will once again yield its strength.
Right.
That was the redemptive value. Now you see where we're going? Keep moving on along now. So, if we all agree that there's redemption in this obedience, right, in our return back to Yah, then there's some benefits we're going to get out of this. Huh? Now we can start conceptualizing now where we're going to go with this physical immortality. How's it really going to happen? Now, the return to Breshit sanity, right, will awaken the vital calibrations of God Eden, the planet Earth. The soil cultivated according to divine agri laws, cycles, and seasons will undergo a restoration, a regeneration. What are the life-sustaining energies that the earth will provide? Is it confirmed in science today? Let's pull out some examples. Article, 2 years ago. Treatment of mice with friendly bacteria normally found in the soil altered their behavior in a way similar to that produced by antidepressant drugs. Friendly bacteria activated a group of neurons that produce the brain chemical serotonin that is responsible for regulating mood. Whoa, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that there's a bacteria in the soil, sir, right, that is able, if you touch the soil, you got to touch the soil now, that it enters into the skin, goes into the bloodstream, passes the blood-brain barrier, which means it's calibrated, because nothing can get through the blood-brain barrier, except that it be calibrated. It passes into the blood-brain barrier, calibrated to activate certain neurons, not all of them, just the ones that are calibrated to release serotonin. Serotonin makes you happy. That's that happy feeling. So you mean that there's a correlation between the soil, right, and happiness? Don't clap now. We got to keep moving. There's another article confirmed in science, right? Not only that, now they're saying that breathing dirt makes you smarter. It says the same bacteria or group of bacteria that is responsible for triggering serotonin, now they find out that serotonin is not only relative to making you happy, but it also builds cognitive ability, meaning that it can improve your brain power. It makes you smarter. It makes you happier. It makes you smarter. And the prophetic constraint has been released off the soil. So what are we waiting for? We're supposed to be lined up at the cop out. So, what is this saying? Right? First of all, minerals in the soil that have to be released, to be revealed, that have never been revealed before. 6 minutes before 20 minutes is up. Okay, good. We roll. All right. So we have Genesis complex minerals in the soil waiting, right, to be activated by your hands, right? Then we have serotonin, happiness, and being smart, right, by coming out there and touching the soil. You can't get a better package than that. You can't buy that anywhere on the planet. So, what does that mean scientifically? Right. It means that a living soil supports the homeostasis of the Adamic body. The soil is an extension of our immune system, of our physiology. It's an extension of our brain. Organic food, organic soil, organic. Follow it?
Okay.
So, the interaction between Adam and Adamah allows for the exchange of elements, okay, and subtle bioenergy, life energy that supports the regenerative function of the Adamic body. And in our language is referred to as the Adam-Adamah bioregenerative exchange capacity. You're not going to find that in any biology book. The Adam-Adamah bioregenerative exchange capacity. Go touch the soil and get smart. Touch the soil and get happy. Touch the soil and live forever. So, coming up to the wire, not down to the wire, because this is a tag team here. With this understanding that the Bereshit idea about this soil, we come to the realization that the Adamic body can continually regenerate itself from the soil. This is the biological basis of physical immortality. I'm not trying, we're taking the myth out of it. We have to take the myth out of it. We already have regenerative power. For instance, the skin replaces itself once a month, the stomach lining every 5 days, the liver cells every 6 weeks, the skeleton every 3 months. That's happening now. So what happens, right, if we do the things that are required, as being stated tonight, to activate those other elements in the soil, right, on our behalf, what type of regenerative power will be activated in the Adamic body? Taking the myth out of this. The last point here on this first portion, then, what are the implications of a soil that is cultivated in accordance with the principle of Bereshit idea, which is divine agriculture? A soil that can provide quality nutrient energy. Energy is the word, right? I'm going to go to this small portion, then we're going to turn to YAHOSHUA, who's going to put the icing on the cake. Energy is needed. How do you feel when you have low energy? I just don't have no energy to do nothing. You'd be tired, right? In every cell in the Adamic body, right, there's a special organelle, which is an organ in a cell, that's called mitochondria. That's plural, all right? That's their formula, right? I call it Yah's energy package. Yep. Okay? Yeah. Yah's energy package. And the mitochondria are responsible for producing energy. There's over 1 quadrillion mitochondria in the Adamic body. 1 quadrillion. Anywhere between several hundred to 2,000 in one cell. If the mitochondria are not producing energy, there is no life. There's no life. But the mitochondria are fueled by what? Oxygen and food nutrients. Nutrition is what fuels the mitochondria. If the mitochondria are not getting proper nutrition, it's not producing proper energy. Or if it's getting poor nutrition, it's producing poor energy. But if it's getting Genesis Bereshit energy, or Genesis Bereshit nutrition through divine agriculture, what will it produce? It's going to produce regenerative energy. Instead of producing ATP and it's in triphosphate, it's going to produce something that we don't even know what we're going to call it yet. You got to follow me on this. And the thing about it, mitochondria has its own DNA. Every cell in the body has DNA, but his has its own DNA. Which means now that we have the ability to impact on the DNA of mitochondria through our food, diet, and other environmental factors like the way we think and our lifestyle. Right. Which means that we can trigger gene characteristics that have been dormant since the Bereshit, since the fall, because it's confirmed in science you can change your DNA. Right. Right. Well, if we can change our DNA in our cells, we can change the DNA in the mitochondria. And if we can do that, then that's another type of energy that's going to be released. And that's the only energy that can propel life forever. Right. And at that point, I'm going to turn it over to YAHOSHUA.
Because of time, I'm going to retouch upon a major point that the Sar brought out, where the first cursing of the land began. And that's something you have to really think about. That this earth, this land, this soil, that can produce all the wondrous things that it produces, and has been producing for millions and billions, however long the time has been, that this magnificent earth was put under a curse because of our disobedience. That it could no longer produce these wondrous creation aspects of creation based upon the behavior of you and I. That's something really heavy to ponder on. And then when you go to the wording of the curse, and you read the story of the creation, it says that Yah created us in His image and likeness, and He told us of what would be our sources of nutrition. He said, of all the trees of the field you can eat. He said, the tree of the knowledge of life in the midst of the garden, eat freely of, etc. We know the story. He said, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat thereof, for the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. Surely die. Right. Surely into the process of destruction and death. And so we disobeyed. We disobeyed. So the curse said that, he said, and because, he said unto Adam, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for your sake, for our sake. Cursed was the ground for our sake. And then he said, in sorrow thou shalt eat of it all the days of thy life. And the sorrow was talking about this happiness. The word in Hebrew that was translated in English for sorrow is also one of the root words that talks about and describes our nervous system. Our nervous system. Mareket esbani. Our nervous system. Now what does the nervous system do? The nervous system is the primary avenue of communication. Remember what the Father said in the book, that we had to find the effect of communication to cause the plants to yield unto us its strength. But our communication was disturbed when we disobeyed Yah. Our effective communication was disturbed when we disobeyed Yah. So now the kingdom has come to show us how that obedient spirit had to come back into play. And then we had to prove our obedience for time, so that the earnest expectation can come forth from the creation as they watch the manifestation of obedience in the sons and daughters of Yah. And this is the point that we're talking about. We have reached a point now in the ascension realm. Now when we're talking about the concept of the whole, that the plants, they have been observing us these 40 years. Earnestly observing us. They've been watching us. Seeing if that obedience would be real, so that effective communication could come forth. And with the teachings and being led by Ben Ami HaMashiach, we have shown forth that obedience.
That's right.
You know, it reminds me of the time when you hear those tales of the search for physical immortality, and they were searching the lands for these plants that had the elixir formula to give physical immortality.
Right.
Well, what we've come to express unto your hearing tonight is that they're here. Let me say that again. I heard what I'm saying.
Say it again.
The plants of renown are here. In this year, the 13th year of the marriage realm, we are encouraged to know that the plants of renown are here. The plants of renown are here. If you have your scriptures, Ezekiel, 34th chapter, 29th verse. And I will raise up for them a plant of renown, and they shall be no more consumed with hunger in the land, neither bear the shame of the nations anymore. Plants of renown. They are here. And this is what the psalm was talking about, that the soil has been observing us and has caused the plants to do something else. And what I wanted to do, the Ministry of Divine Health, what we wanted to do is to give you a picture so you can see the power of these plants of renown. The power of being obedient to Torah Chaim, Torah Ben Ami, the laws of life. that was giving us the power to turn the morning creation back into glorious expectation of these beautiful, wondrous creations and the plants on the earth. So, back to the fall, we fell, we disobeyed, the soil was cursed, and it disrupted certain biological functions within us. And not only were certain biological functions within us disturbed, but functions within the soil. And the primary source of this malfunctioning was in the DNA. The DNA. So what I want to do is to just explain and give us an understanding of this DNA. I know DNA is a common household term now. Okay, everybody, you hear DNA on all kinds of things. You know, DNA matching, etc., everything is DNA. But do we really understand what DNA is? Do we really understand the power of DNA? Okay? We've heard of genes and genetic expression. We just want to make some things plain today. DNA is a very complex and very tightly regulated chemical sequence that is found in every cell of the body. And we have over 100 trillion cells of our body. In the center of the cell, you have the DNA. You have the DNA, which are two coils, okay, that intertwine of information. This DNA has a major function of passing on hereditary characteristics. Your height, your skin color, your eye color, your hair texture, okay, your physical agility is transferred through your DNA. You have a gene, which is part of the information on a coil of the DNA. So we understand when you're talking about genes, you're talking about pieces of information and sequence on the DNA strand. We clear? Okay. So there's a gene on the DNA that tells the body to produce brown eyes. What's real magnificent in understanding is that same gene that tells the eye to be brown is found on the same part of the DNA in each of the 100 trillion cells. Wow. But it's not manifested or expressed but in the area of the iris. All of that is governed by a certain order of instruction. Now, so we understand that the DNA produces hereditary characteristics, arms, legs, development of the body, which is our life, how we express ourselves. But guess what? That's only 3% of the DNA. What? 3% of the DNA deals with all of that we talked about. Your arm length, your physical agility, your textures of your body, etc. What about the other 97%? That's what has been baffling science until recently. Because we understand, as Yah has said, as Abba has taught us, that they're now doing experiments based upon the will of Yah to confirm the kingdom's progression. Okay? So 97% of the DNA does not deal with hereditary characteristics. What does that 97% deal with? It deals with giving instructions on how to make the body over, the Adamic body over and over again. The 97% tells the DNA what to do. And then the other 3% actually goes about coding the proteins to make sure it happens. Guess what they found? The development of cancers, when they say it's all in the DNA, genetic expression of cancer, they found that the gene, the DNA, the part of the DNA that changes, that become cancerous, is not in the part of the hereditary. It's in the 97%. That means something is giving instructions for those cancer cells to start to mount. Again, disobedience caused the curse of the ground. So that means that 97% was observing the disobedience, and Yah said, activate the destruction of the Adamic body. And now we've come back to the kingdom, and we've been obedient to the instructions given to us. So now something in that DNA is telling them, let's prolong their lives.
That's it.
Are you with me?
Right.
DNA. All the genes and genetic information required for life are found in the DNA. So instead of the human genome, what we're talking about is the Breshit genome that is now being activated because of you and I being obedient into this kingdom process. So now the plants that are growing now from the soil, that have been observing this, are now being coded from that 97% to do something else, to produce something else in the food, in the nutrition. Let me give just a small example. How much time is it? Besides time. Let me tell you how powerful DNA is. If you could take 2 cells. Everybody know what stem cells are? You take 2 stem cells, identical with DNA, put them in 2 different Petri dishes or dishes, and if you give it different nutrition, environment, they're going to express differently. So if you put one new cell in a Petri dish and give it one particular nutrition, it may turn into be a muscle cell. But if you take the other cell, which was identical in DNA, and put another type of nutrition, which means another type of environment, it's going to produce heart cell. Same DNA, same type of makeup, different expression. The key is in the expression of the DNA, is the point that we're making. The expression of the DNA. So, organic soil, with the blessings of the Chava, the Ministry of Divine Agriculture, the saints of Yah with their obedience, the soil has been observant, and the soil is now becoming organic again. The soil is becoming organic. Now, they did a study in California, and what they did was they took some land and they cultivated the soil, one organic through organic means and one through conventional means, and they grew strawberries. They wanted to see was there really a significant difference between organically produced strawberries and conventionally produced strawberries. This was one of the most comprehensive studies in this kind that has ever been produced so far that's been recorded. And what they found, after they analyzed the soil and the strawberries, they found some important things. First, the organic strawberries have significantly higher antioxidant activity and concentrations of ascorbic acid, vitamin C. The organic strawberries had a longer shelf life, physical immortality. The organic strawberries had more strawberry in them. Had more matter of strawberry. So then you have to think, okay, then so if the organic strawberries have more strawberry in them, that means the Adamic soul consuming more plants of renown will have more soul in it. Are you following? We'll have more soul in us. Soul that it was dormant 5,000, 6,000 years ago, we're going to have more soul now. I mean, you got a pounder on point. More strawberry and strawberry. The researchers also found that, and this was one of the major points, that the organically grown strawberries had more total and unique genes and greater genetic diversity. That means genes that were not expressed in the conventionally grown strawberries were expressed in the organic strawberries, which caused it to have more strawberry. I hope you get the picture of what's coming. Time won't allow me to just let us ponder on that. Let's go. So let's go to understanding some more things. And we're going to come to other seminars to be able to express this in greater detail. But this DNA again. Now, I'm going to jump to a point. It said that we were the sons or daughters of light. Right? When you go back again to the creation process, the Genesis idea, light was what? At the top of the creative process. It said, let there be light, right? Then on the 3rd day, vegetation was created on the earth. 3 is significant. Now, light from the sun. There would be no life on the planet without light from the sun. We know that. Plants, you get the light through photosynthesis. They create the energy in the plant through this plant glucose for our souls, amongst other things. What happens to the light, though? Just say you eat some broccoli. The broccoli breaks down and the carbon dioxide, monoxide, CO2, breaks down into water, breaks down into phytonutrients, and it also breaks down into light. Water is absorbed and excreted. The CO2 is expelled. Nutrients are absorbed. And the light is absorbed. Where is the light absorbed to? What attracts the light? DNA. An element of light is called a photon. Okay? Now, see, Shalia used to talk about the great photon belt. An element of light is a photon. One photon has the ability to carry about 4 megabytes of information. One photon. Every time a DNA unwinds, one photon is squeezed out of the DNA, which carries all of the information of the DNA at that time and shares it with all the other DNA in the body. We're talking about information though. What information? What information is in that light? That light, that same light has the power to heal DNA that has been damaged. They have shown that if you were to destroy 99% of DNA, you can take light of the same frequency and regenerate the DNA in a matter of hours. So it has regenerative capabilities. We are talking about plants of renown. These photons are in the DNA of the plants and our cells. The announcement that we have read out to the brotherhood, that's going out to the saints, that we're talking about now, the plants of renown, we're saying that there are 2 areas of plants of renown that we're looking at. Wild edible greens that are grown, wild edible greens are now being considered plants of renown. Also, first generation plants that are grown at the Kaaba. What are first generation plants? These are plants that we have, Sar and his mighty staff has taken the seeds of the old seeds of the world and replanted them according to divine agricultural processes, love and appreciation. And on the 3rd cycle of planting, when it gets to the 4th time you get the seed, those seeds have no history of the old. Those are plants of renown. They're at the farm now. Wild edible greens that are growing have this capability to regenerate. The Ministry of Divine Health and the Ministry of Divine Agriculture, we are charged with pinpointing these areas that we can get the wild edible greens and consume them. So it's being governed by these 2 ministries. Wherever these wild edible greens are, we have to note them, list them, categorize them, and stamp them. These are plants of renown for the consumption of the people. And bring them. And bring them home for us. That's our charge. But like Sar said, we can't do it by ourselves. We,
the whole,
get out to the Kaaba, get out with the Ministry of Divine Health and Agriculture so we can pinpoint these wild edible greens that are plants of renown. They have another unprecedented regenerative effect in them. My time's getting short. Let me close out on this again to show you the power of these plants in the DNA. There was a doctor named Dr. Glenn Ryan. He was a cellular biologist. And what he wanted to do, he wanted to test the power of DNA and then the power of human behavior or state of being upon DNA, okay? Because we found out that the DNA is affected by the organic structure of the soil. We understand that. Nutrition, etc. But what about the character of man? How is that, or is there any science that shows that our behavior, that our state of being can affect DNA? This is what I want to leave you all with. So Professor Glenn Ryan, cellular biologist, he wanted to study the effects of DNA from biological systems. He wanted to do that because DNA is one of the most stable elements in the body. One of the most stable that's in your cell. So what he did was he took 3 groups of 10 healers, right? And he said, okay, what I want you to do to one group, he said, I want you to take 2 vials in your hand of pure DNA, and I want you to think with your heart feelings of love and appreciation and see what happens to the DNA. So 2 minutes they held the vials. The vials were suspended in deionized water. And after 2 minutes, they looked at studied the DNA under the microscope, and they saw there was some changes, but not statistically significant. But there were some changes in the DNA. So he said, okay, this other group, I want you to grab 2 vials of the DNA. And he said, but I don't want you to feel, don't put your heart in it, don't feel anything. Just think in your mind, okay, I want to unwind and wind this DNA. I want them to contract and expand, So they were thinking it, 2 minutes. With the passion, with their mental integrity. Again, after 2 minutes, they took the vials and they studied the DNA. It changed, but not statistically significant. But then he said, the third group, what I want you to do is combine your head and your heart. I want you to hold these vials and not only intend with your mind to unwind them, but feel it. Put that love and appreciation for the DNA and see yourself unwind. When they studied it, it was great significant changes in the DNA. They unwound and wound, some up to 25%. And what I told you was every time a DNA winds and unwinds, a little photon is excreted. So do we have an effect on this planet? On DNA? Again, I know you're mesmerized with that information. I'll take the silence as a good thing. To me, I jumped out my seat when I heard that one, because this is what the kingdom is about. The ecology of people. It said, Besimcha, worship Yah. And that joy and love coming from the heart and the head in unison causes dramatic effects. So the plants of renown. What does the light do? What does this light do? It regulates metabolic enzymes, and it switches on the body processes. That's the last part I want to leave you with. The light that's in the DNA that is also connected to the sun. It causes the metabolic enzymes to activate. Do you understand what that means? It causes different processes in your body to occur. It causes that. The light causes that. It causes that. Wild edible greens has a high concentration of biophotons. Organically grown food from the Kabbalah has a high concentration of these biophotons. I told you this was a milestone in regenerative nutrition. The elixir of immortality, the Makor al-Mavid, is here. Plants of renown. So with that, standing with the time frame, we want to say again, we send announcements out to the Divine Sainthood. We will be hearing more about this as time goes on, because I said it has to be governed by the Ministry of Divine Health and the Ministry of Divine Agriculture. You can't just go out and pick some wild greens and think these are the plants of renown, because you got to make sure they're not by any chemical factories, any polluted areas. So it is governed by these 2 ministries. What I'm always saying is, come help these ministries. Help us as we touch the soil and get more of the plants of renown out. But the point is, they are here. They're here for our consumption. And from this point on, physical immortality will be our reality.